Hi everyone, welcome back to Field Stories. My name's Nick Smith. Unfortunately, we're not joined by Chris and Michela. We had some serious technical issues yesterday with the Wi-Fi, so we're here in person. This is Emily Forster. If you'd like to just introduce yourself quickly, we're basically going to have a little chat today, and we're going to see how it goes. So basically if you want to tell everyone who you are and why we're here.
Well, as Nick said, I'm Emily, and I'm also on the same course as him, Marine and Natural History Photography. I'm in my final year, so I've been doing lots of filming out in the rainforests of Belize and various other activities.
That's awesome. So Em's the experienced one out of us too.
I don't know about that.
Well, we had some behind the scenes footage from earlier that we were doing. What was it? Professional practice module?
Profile, yeah.
Professional profile module was one of them. And we were wondering how are we ever going to pass that module. But basically, we are in a studio. It's really janky. I can't be dealing with this, but it's fine. We're in some sort of music studio. There's a piano here. I think it's off camera. There's loads of speakers everywhere. Fun environment to be in for this. But yeah, so if you'd like to just tell everyone what your recent project was. So obviously you said you were in Belize, but what were you doing? So
for my final project at uni, I had to create a film, and I wrote my dissertation on butterfly farming because I've always been interested in butterflies and moths. And I decided to get in touch with one of my mum's friends who owns a butterfly ranch out in Belize. Awesome. And they let me stay on their farm, and I've created like a short documentary about what they do there and why they're doing it, mainly in like coalition with protecting the rainforest and conservation strategies.
Oh, that's so good. That's so cool. So how long have you been there? So you spent a couple of trips there?
Yeah, so I went back last summer and spent, I think, 4 weeks out there filming. And then I've gone again just recently in January, and I was there for 5 weeks. Nice,
that's so good. Yeah. So why don't you tell us sort of some of the experiences that maybe some of them. I think it's quite obvious that there's a lot of like bad things happening in terms of conservation around the world. So maybe some of the things that you noticed that weren't so good, and then hopefully we've got a couple of things that are a little bit better. And maybe you could just start off with maybe something that you noticed that wasn't so great, and then maybe we'll top it off with something that is obviously important.
So I think that a lot of people around the world aren't aware of the stuff that actually goes on in the rainforest until you go there and see it yourself. Absolutely. So I knew that there was deforestation going on, but I didn't know to what extent. So the first time I went back in summer, I saw a lot of cleared area, but there was still like a huge majority of the rainforest left compared to what I went and saw last time I went. So the 5 months between my two trips, in those 5 months alone, there had been masses of rainforest cleared. So I went back to the same places, and there were just huge areas that had been cleared in that small space of time.
God, so 5 months is insane, isn't it?
But you just don't realise how quickly it gets cleared, and like the scale of it happening as well is insane. And it's all kind of going there. Obviously, it's difficult because we're from like a Western country. Pretty much first world country, and they're still kind of in that third world country category. And it is difficult sort of going there as sort of a privileged person and telling them how to do things. So it's always difficult, and you've got to accept like that's their way of living. However, there's a group called the Mennonites there, and it's their religion to tame nature. So they will literally cut down every single tree and kill everything that moves.
Oh wow,
every living thing.
That's insane.
So a lot of people don't know about that. I got taught about it and went and saw in person what they're doing. Again, it's difficult because that is how they're brought up. That is their religion.
Yeah, that's a whole culture, right?
So that is their culture. That's what they've been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years.
God, that's insane. I've never heard of that, actually. Wow.
So that's the main group of people out there. They're originally from Germany, so they speak 400-year-old German, so Germans of today wouldn't understand what they're saying.
Wow.
But they all moved over to Belize like 400 years ago. And now there's many, many families of them. And yeah, they're the main problem. I mean, you do get local Belizeans as well cutting down the forest, but they normally leave a few trees, so you can tell the difference between the Belizean farms and the Mennonite farms. And the Mennonites as well, they use it for cattle, so they'll clear the rainforest and then stick cattle on it. And Belize is very mountainous, very hilly, so that just causes surface runoff. And then at the moment, Belize has, I think it's ranked like the most pristine coral reefs in the entire world. However, if this continues, the surface runoff's just going to kill off the coral, because again, a lot of people don't realise, like everyone says, oh, global warming is the reason corals are being killed off. In the past, we've had sea temperatures a lot higher than this, and the corals have survived.
Good point.
So the main issue is this sediment. The coral polyps themselves, as soon as they get any sediment in, they sort of suffocate, and that's what kills them off. So it's the surface runoff from the forest that is essentially getting into the coral and killing it.
Wow. So does it go rainforest straight, like obviously like a maybe beach or something in between, but it's basically rainforest into beach into the sea, like a bit like you'd see in Costa Rica, or is there like a bit of a gap?
So there's a little bit of a gap. So when you arrive at the airport, you've just come in over the ocean. Belize City is kind of, don't know what sort of, it's like a dry, arid, like it's all been cleared really, so it's kind of a bit dry and there's not much around. And then you drive for about, I don't know, an hour inland, and it's sort of marshy areas, lots of sort of thornier shrubs and trees. And then after about an hour of driving, you get into sort of more of the rainforest. You see mountains start to form, and there's loads of, all of the trees cover the mountains, and you get much into like the thicker rainforest habitat. However, all of this, because it is a rainforest, you get so much rain that all of this surface runoff from the places that have been cleared just runs down the rivers and into the ocean straight away.
It's shocking, honestly. Well, that's really interesting. I mean, it's terrible, don't get me wrong, but I had no idea about the sort of cultural, like the religion of sort of killing everything or cutting down the forest. That's incredible to know. So obviously, that shows quite a lot of the issues that's been going on. What were the sort of positive things that you saw whilst you were there? Something that can sort of maybe bring a bit of hope or like a little bit of optimism with this? So
the positives, at Green Hills especially, they're doing a lot of education in terms of conservation. So the Belizean community, all of the younger generation, at school they don't get taught about conservation. They barely get taught about wildlife or what's on their doorstep. So a lot of these children are growing up having no idea what an ocelot is or a jaguar, even though they're literally I don't know, a mile away from. Well, that reminds me of what that talk we did the other day. So our lecturer essentially put on a talk with some people from South Africa that had done this film, and they were essentially saying that people live just outside the national parks in the amazing like Kruger National Park or other ones. They've never seen an elephant, they've never seen a giraffe, anything like that. And we were both in that talk, and what you're saying there sounds very similar, that the sort of only people who get to visit these places are, like we said before, privileged, maybe Westerners, or gotta be careful like how you're talking about it, but it's kind of true. And yeah, that sounds very much like that. So I'm sorry to interrupt on that one, but yeah, no, it's exactly like that. So Green Hills tries its best. Now that they've got a lot of staff that are locals, they bring in a lot of the local schools in the area, and they teach all of the younger children about the butterflies, and they teach them all about the life cycle and everything. And then occasionally they'll do butterfly releases out into the forest. So they'll get to see where these butterflies live, and they'll get taught about why it's so important to protect the trees. They have little booklets on all of the species they find. They have camera traps up, so these booklets contain camera trap photos of all of the species that have been sighted. I had a conversation with a little boy there. Yeah. He was like, oh, I saw a jaguar at the zoo. Like, do you have jaguars here? And we're like, yes, we do have jaguars here. So good. Green Hills is actually one of the few sites that has all 5 American big cats. Oh, cool. So they have the jaguars, jaguarundis, ocelot, margay, and mountain lion. Oh, epic. On the property, and they've just started up a non-profit organisation as well called Jaguar Habitat, and as they were putting up the Jaguar Habitat like protection signs out on the road, they had a jaguar across the road. So it just proves that it's like if you put the work in and protect an area, like so they protect 250 acres is the property size. However, they protect a surrounding 800 acres of that as well. So if you protect like 1,000 acres of forest, you have that huge influx of life that comes in because you create a sanctuary. Like all of the surrounding area is now cleared.
It makes so much sense,
so,
honestly. That's so many similarities. Obviously, when I was with Chris in the rainforest in Amazon, it's exactly the same. They've got all of those species too. And it's interesting seeing the camera trap footage because you'd be looking at sometimes people that are sort of mammal coordinators would be flicking through and then it's like, oh, there's us. We're just walking. It's like, you've caught us. And you're like, oh, I recognise me there or whatever. And then an hour later, there's a jaguar just walking the same way as you, following. It might not be following us essentially, but it's so interesting that they're around, they're everywhere, and it's sort of, well, not everywhere, but you know what I mean, and they're there, but just not going to get a glimpse of them as such. So it's so interesting. I love stuff like that.
What was scary as well was 2 days after I left on my trip, the camera trap actually picked up a poacher. So they have camera trap footage of a poacher walking through their property.
That's crazy.
Shotgun loaded and everything, ready to go.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, because it could be you or someone else walking on that property. You don't want to encounter that, do you? So you're both like, oh no. Oh damn, yeah. Well, very interesting again. So thanks for all of that. Have you got any sort of encounters or anything that you experienced in Belize that you want to share, like a sort of cool story? I know you were sending me some interesting videos when you were out there. I'll let you elaborate on that.
So there were definitely some challenges with the wildlife as well as very exciting encounters. I'd say the main one being, so the first time I went in the summer, there was definitely a bit of a scorpion problem. So I was staying in a big house like on top of a hill, literally surrounded by trees. So a lot of the locals, they clear like, I don't know, maybe 5 meters around the house. So it's just like lawn. So you don't get the snakes coming in or anything. So when I was staying there the first time, every single night I would go in to my bedroom and I'd have to shine the UV torch because that's scorpions, if you don't know, they glow a very bright green under UV light. They have sort of a luminous thing in their skeleton. I don't know the right word.
It checks out.
But they glow bright green. So every night I'd have to check my room with the UV torch. I was informed that there wouldn't be any scorpions or spiders in my bedroom.
That's a brave call to make, by the way, in the rainforest.
I think every single night I counted at least one, sometimes two, but the main problem was I think there had been a giant like female that had babies because I kept finding babies like actually in my bed, not just next to my bed, but
in them.
So that was a fun experience, but I've learned how to deal with them now. So the second time I went, I encountered only two the whole time I was there, and I could deal with them by that point. So it's just a thing you kind of get used to. Like so I went with like the biggest fear of spiders. And on the last day of my most recent trip, I filmed a tarantula. So I was like, okay, it's fine. I mean, I didn't really want to touch it, but...
That's actually fair though, isn't it? I'm not sure people should be getting around touching tarantulas too much.
No, but as well, it was kind of like that permanent, you have no idea if it could harm you. So a lot of the spiders, even though like there's so much behind it, like saying, oh, they're actually quite dangerous, in Belize, then there's not many really that can harm you. The things you got to worry about are the snakes, because again, the scorpions, it's like a bee sting, and it doesn't really harm you in any way. But
so pretty mild,
Yeah, there were 6 species of snake on the property that could kill you within 2 hours. So
standard,
it's
fun.
You probably experienced the same in the Amazon.
Yeah, I know, it was actually the same, but I was very fortunate. Well, obviously Chris couldn't be here, but he's extremely like knowledgeable with venomous snakes and all of it's sort of like his passion is what he... Sorry for talking for you, Chris, but essentially it's really good to have people like that around you, because then it's like, you know what, just be careful. Like, you gotta be looking around every time. I think there was a couple times we were playing football barefoot on the property but sometimes the ball would go into the leaves and people would just go and grab it, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, and like I may have even been guilty of that myself, like getting it, so everyone's a bit like, just steady on, let's just go in slowly, like preferably with foot covering. But you do get carried away, especially when you're living in these places, because it's like, well, I just want to I would have fun playing football in the jungle. It sounds great. It was one of my favourite experiences there. But you still got to be so aware. Like, we're so lucky in England, or maybe unlucky because it's boring. But there's nothing really. I mean, you might encounter an adder, but it probably won't kill you even if it does bite you.
There's nothing that can harm you in the same way. And I guess when we go out to places like the Amazon, we're not really thinking. Yeah. There's actually something that can kill you. So like what turned me on was the first trip I went on. One of the staff, their dad, got bitten by a coral snake, which is like one of the worst you can get bitten by. So he got rushed to hospital, and it turns out like he was fine in the end because they gave him the antivenom in time. But like that just kind of turned my brain on, and I was like,
yeah, it's a genuine threat at all times. I mean, the thing is, none of these things are out to get you or do anything, but it's real. It's something to be aware of. It's just, like I said, it's so fortunate to be around great people who know, like, where I was, all the staff were just so knowledgeable and just really aware of this and just educating the guests or the volunteers coming in. And it's so, like, it's such a great thing to be around such experienced people, because you can just sort of go through the jungle, have that fun experience, but just really learning about all of the sort of ecosystems and things that can happen within it. So that's really cool. All of that's great. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on Belize, or would you like to talk about maybe some other places you visited or some issues? Because I have a couple of things I definitely want to talk to about just to finish off, and I think you can probably tell a really cool story if I'll prompt you. I didn't prep Em on this question at all, I just remembered. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about quickly before I sort of push down another route?
I mean, so there's lots of experiences you can do in Belize because it's a very like tourist-centered place now.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So the other places I visited were a place called Caracol, which is one of the huge Mayan ruin sites. It's the biggest one in Belize.
Sure.
That was a pretty awesome experience because it was the first time I saw howler monkeys in the wild.
Oh, they're so cool.
And I was lucky enough to film a family, so they had a tiny little baby, which was adorable.
That's so nice.
Although most of them enjoyed peeing or pooing whilst I was filming them, which was it's always the way. But
I filmed them on the clay lick, so there was this massive clay lick with the macaws go, and this whole family of howler monkeys came crawling down it. It was so cool. Yeah, they're such amazing species.
They are incredible. We had them on the property itself, but they didn't want to come near us. So, as well as that, I also went to a place called Black Rock. I haven't mentioned this yet, but I'm a massive birder, so like I will go for birds. And there's this really rare bird called a rufous-tailed jacamar, I think. Okay. Which everyone I've shown it to has said, is that a hummingbird? But it's about this big, like the size of a magpie maybe. Wow. When it's sat on a branch, its tail kind of hangs down straight, and then so probably about that, including the tail.
Okay, cool.
And I saw one at this place called Black Rock for the first time. Black Rock is stunning. It's like huge mountains with white like cliff faces going down them. Proper like middle of the rainforest again with this huge river. And we walked to the Vaca Falls, which is like at the end of one of the main walking trails. And there's just this jacamar like sat in the tree, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
I've never wanted Chris to be here more. Because we caught a few jacamars. I'm not sure if it was the roof. I don't think, again, Chris would have to confirm it, but I don't remember catching a rufous-tailed one, but we caught a great jacamar, which again is, like you said, is quite a decent-sized bird. And I came away with one of my like favourite ever pictures from that. It just just such a beautiful bird, and like the iridescence on them, they're such stunning. And they do look like hummingbirds, don't they? But a lot sizable. But that's so great.
But definitely Black Rock was one of my favourite experiences because the first time I went back in the summer, because I went both times I went to Belize. And the first time I went, I saw a king vulture there as well, which was incredible. Right before I dropped my camera in the river. We don't talk about that.
Quickly, okay.
So that's another challenge that you face. Being a filmmaker, you'd think, you're prepared for everything. No.
Absolutely not. Bad for that too.
No, so I did end up dropping my camera in the river on that trip. Luckily, it was my last day out there. So.
What are the chances? Last day. So. Not to bring off the sore subject, but I am curious. So whole thing in?
Yeah, whole thing went in the river and I went in after it. So I then went and found Irvin, who's like the manager on Green Hills, and we did like pretty much everything together. I went to find Irvin and I was drenched through to the skin, and literally 20 minutes prior to our walk, he asked me the question, have you ever dropped your camera before? And I was like, no, of course not.
I would never do that.
And so I just walked up to him and I was like, Irvin. And there's just this camera, like my 200 to 600 mil lens on, just dripping. And I was like, oh God, it was the worst nightmare, but it's fine.
Poor lens, what a lens.
I've got a new one now, I've got the upgrades.
You're just doing a fine job. Not that it's not a long lens, but yeah. Okay, great. So that's awesome. I think that's a lot of good stuff from Belize. I think that's amazing. So I might have to go myself someday. But I think there's a couple of things, or certainly one thing I definitely want to cover is, so the other day I saw humpback whales for the first time ever in the UK. You happened to be there.
Yes.
And but the impressive thing for this is it's not your first whale experience in the UK off of Cornwall. So it's literally where we're at university, Falmouth University, bottom of Cornwall essentially, near Land's End. 3 humpback whales were spotted. And we were both there to watch it, and it was epic. And they were breaching. It was unbelievable, right? First time I've ever seen whales in the UK, second time ever. Do you want to talk about the other times you saw them? Because I think you had a pretty epic experience with some other type of whales.
Yes, so I work on a wildlife cruise company called AK Wildlife Cruises in Falmouth. And it's honestly like one of the best jobs ever. So I never thought I would be a marine species girl. As soon as I started working there 2 years ago, I was like changed. It was incredible. So I've seen probably like my first ever whale encounter. So was a pretty incredible one. We get a lot of minke whales down here, so I always thought minke whale's gonna be my first, like just is set in stone. But no, so we just got the new boat set up and we went out on the first time ever for it. And we went down towards the Dodman Point, which is a big headland that sticks out just to the west of Falmouth Bay. No, east of Falmouth Bay. I was like trying to work out in my head.
I'm sure half the people will have no idea what's going on. All our American viewers are like, what's Falmouth?
But yeah, just to the east of Falmouth Bay. And we went out, and we literally probably hadn't even been out for an hour. And we saw this big blow, and we were like, oh my God, there's a whale. But if you know anything about whales, minke whales don't have a blow. So that instantly ruled out minke. So we all got very excited.
Yeah, it's 2 options, isn't there?
We approached the area and there were hundreds and hundreds of gannets just pouring into the water. And we thought, this is exciting. This could be something big. Because as well with the blow, we're never sure if it's the splash from a gannet diving in or it could be anything. Literally, it might not mean a whale. Because any sort of white water coming up, it could just be like, it could be a dolphin diving in and like just breaching, or it could be anything. So
tuna.
We approached this area like really slowly because we wanted to really work it and make sure that we didn't scare anything off while approaching. And we got in and there was a pod of about, I think it was like 30 to 40 common dolphins, all like working and feeding. There was clearly a huge bait ball below these gannets. Like they were having a feeding frenzy. Anyway, we watched the dolphins for about 10 minutes and then like right beside us, we just heard this and like up came this whale and it was about a 35-foot fin whale, which is very small for a fin whale. So it was only a little baby. And we sat just watching this baby lunge feed. So lunge feeding is where they launch themselves right up to the surface and go side on and try and fill their mouth with the fish or krill or bait or like whatever is around that they're feeding on. And then they'll slowly push out all of the water through their baleen because they are the biggest baleen whale that we get in the UK. They're the second biggest whale on the planet. So they're only just smaller than the blue whale. But yeah, so we watched this guy feeding for about half an hour. And as we were turning to follow him out, because he decided to like turn and it looked like he was leaving, we heard this huge blow from behind us. And there was a 75-footer. Oh. It was incredible. She was massive. But we then worked out that this must have been mum and baby. And the baby turned around and came back in to feed, and they were just feeding for about another 45 minutes or so.
That's epic.
And I just couldn't believe it. Like, it was insane.
It's crazy.
And then, so that was like in April of last year, I believe. And then all throughout the summer, we had an incredible season. So I saw one of these fin whales because I was in Belize, but while I was in Belize, they had 42 different individual fin whales.
No, 42?
42. Jesus. Which is a record-breaking number for Falmouth.
It's insane.
Like, absolutely smashed the record. I think the previous record was maybe like 20 in a season. But yeah, this was insane. And then when I got back, every single trip I went on, I had a minke whale, so it became M is for minke on our trips. So yeah, I was lucky enough to see, I think I've seen maybe 20 plus individual minke whales. They're really fun because we call them stinky minkies, because even though they don't produce a visible blow, they produce a very stinky blow. You can smell minke in the air. Really? So a lot of times we've actually smelt the whale before we've spotted the whale.
Oh, that's so good.
So if you smell like a really fishy, oily smell in the air, you can then know like you need to look in this area because there is one around.
There's one around.
Because as well with whale watching, it's so difficult because they can hold their breath for over an hour if they want to. So they can be down under the surface and you have no clue that they're like there unless you stop, wait and scan for like a good solid 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, it was like that when the humpbacks were. We all at one point thought there was just one whale, and it ended up, it was on one side and then it was suddenly on the other side and we're like, huh. But it was like within like after 5-10 minutes or so. But yeah, well, there was definitely 3 in the end, which is utterly insane. And to watch them breach was just like mental to watch. I still need to go through my footage of it because I think you
might be the only person that's got video.
I can't believe I've ruined it. It's taken this long for me to ruin it. I was dead certain that would happen. Yeah, I might be, but I need to go through it. Oh. Okay, but that's my challenge for this week, is to go through that bloody footage. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, humpbacks completed the 3 balleens for me. So
the 3 balleens. What? Oh my God. Have we ever had any other whale species spotted off of the coast here? Has there ever had like a sperm whale or
We've had
like
pilot whales.
Pilot whale, that makes sense.
So we've had pilot whales in the past year. I think they were only sighted twice in 2023 rare, in Falmouth Bay. I don't know about further out. If you go down into the Bay of Biscay, I think they've had sperm whales.
Yeah, UK has had sperm whales before.
Yeah, I think they're normally sighted off Scotland.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
So as well as that, we obviously get all of our dolphins. My favourite encounter being the Risso's dolphins that we had. So I had seen Risso's I think twice before this one encounter, but we went out on a 2-hour trip. Normally the trips are 4 to 7 hours. Yeah. We went out on a 2-hour trip, so I wasn't expecting much. The guests were obviously expecting like the world, but I wasn't expecting too much because it was just a little local trip for the Duchy Hotel, which is a hotel on the front of Falmouth. And as we were coming back from the Halford, we'd given them a little tour up the Halford River. As we were coming back, we saw these fins. And I instantly went, Risso's dolphin! Because the Risso's as well, the fully grown mature adults can be completely white. Yeah. And they look a bit like a beluga whale, if you didn't know otherwise. And then as they get younger, they're sort of like more of a mottled grey, and you can see like very distinct, sort of almost drawn on patterns in like a lighter, paler colour. And that's because they are toothed whales. Like, I know they're dolphins, but all dolphins are essentially part of the toothed whale family. And essentially, in this group that we encountered, there was a mix of various colours. There were 2 very white individuals, and then there were some younger ones. And these patterns on the sides are created by them socialising with each other, so their teeth will rub up against each other and they'll create these line patterns. So it almost rubs away the colour until they are purely white. That's how they become white. And in this encounter in particular, like, we were doing a tour for the Duchy Hotel, and they came up directly in front of the Duchy Hotel. So I have this photo of the Duchy Hotel in the background of these Risso's dolphins. And it's the closest we've ever got to Risso's. They didn't care about the boat. We just turned the engines off and sat still. And they came like right in close.
And they were just right there. That's so good, isn't it?
They were weaving in and out. And they actually, one of them came up to breathe directly underneath this catamaran that was out. It was like this like proper like catamaran yacht setup. And it came up right in between. And they must have got the shock of their lives when it breathed, because it was directly underneath these people stood on deck. But yeah, so it was a pretty cool encounter as well.
God damn, there's some good stories there. That I knew
I could talk for hours about AK Wildlife.
I'd love to. I think we're gonna wrap it up by asking you. So essentially, normally we would obviously do the story as the end thing, but we've had stories throughout of this. I think it's kind of been quite smooth. There's been a few different ones, which is cool. So instead, I'm going to ask you what your sort of future ambitions are. So where would you like to work? Because you've mentioned the rainforest and marine life now, and I know for a fact you're a massive bird watcher as well. So where do you think, obviously there's no like obvious answer, I'd be in the same boat if someone asked me that, but like if you could have any choice in the world of what sort of project you would do after you finish uni, maybe what film you would make, what would you do?
So I think I'd definitely like to stay in the UK for a while and focus on some UK species. I definitely want to create a film about the marine life that can be found within Falmouth Bay. I think that would be my first project outside of uni. Because I also did a project back in first year about the blue-rayed limpets. So even something as tiny as those, like, you think if there's something that rare and that tiny, there must be something else.
You've got like St. Piran's hermit crabs and stuff like that, right? So it was crazy, like nudibranchs that are like insane.
Yeah, the rainbow season.
It's crazy. There's some epic wildlife in Falmouth, right?
Yeah. So I think that would be a really good opportunity. And then maybe more long term, I mean, obviously people have aspirations of being like Blue Planet.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I want to go down that route anymore. I definitely did.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I think I'm now sort of getting more specialised, so I'd like to be sort of, I know how to film insects now. I'm good at filming birds. I'm good at filming on a boat. So if there was like an expedition somewhere by a sea, that would be really good.
This is an advert anyway. Anyone watching?
Anyone wanting to hire me?
Yeah. This is an official advert. And it will reach millions, I promise.
But yeah, I'm getting good with my drone, so I'm just practicing that skill, because it's a good skill to have in the industry at the moment, because it's definitely a new one. And
well, I heard someone saying, I don't know who it was exactly, someone who's been in the industry for a long time, saying you almost can't make a film now without drone footage. Yeah. It's almost like industry standard.
Well, it's because everyone's now got used to the drone shot is the context shot.
Yeah, exactly.
It brings you into the environment. So if you can create that atmosphere of showing where a scene is taking place, you're like set. It's
done, isn't it? That is so cool. Well, thank you very much. I think, we could do this all day. I think we do anyway. Whenever we hang out, this is basically the conversation we'd have. We just happen to be filming it today. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on. If there's any last closing thoughts, feel free. But otherwise, I think we'll end it there. And thank you very much. This has been great fun. And I'll probably just do a little outro just to basically say that unfortunately Chris and Michela couldn't be here. It's the first time that we've had to do it sort of without them. Actually, that's not a lie. Michela did one without me and Chris because similar sort of technical issues were happening. But yeah, so obviously we'll look forward to having them back on next week. But I think this has been a good little stopgap. I think it's done well. So yeah, just standard. I need to up my game on this. So I'm going to say make sure you like, comment and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're listening on Spotify, make sure to drop us a comment in the poll section. We're happy to hear your thoughts. If not, message us directly. We're all happy to talk at any point. If you have any jobs for Em, she's looking for them. And yeah, she will pay. But yeah, no, we'll basically we'll end off there. So thank you very much for coming.
No, thank you for having me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much. See you next week. Bye.